So good, so good, so good.
Everything you want for summer is at Nordstrom Rack stores now, and up to 60% off. Stock up and save on the brands you love like Vince, Sam Edelman, Frame, and Free People. Join the Nordy Club to unlock exclusive discounts, shop new arrivals first, and more. Plus, buy online and pick up at your favorite Rack store for free. Great brands, great prices. That's why you Rack.
This is an iHeart podcast. Guaranteed human.
It's an Olympics you'll never forget. Prime time in Milan. The moments.
Chloe Kim with the gold medal flex.
The stars.
Ilya Malinin.
Out of this world.
The spectacle from beautiful northern Italy with very special guests every night of the Olympics. Experience the world's biggest show. Prime time in Milan, tonight 8/7 Central on NBC and Peacock.
Why have I asked my HVAC guy I found on Angie.com to change my grandpa's trachea tube? Because I was so amazed by how quickly he replaced our air ducts. I knew I could trust him to change Pop-Pop's tube while I was on vacation.
Make it quick, young man.
Aw, see? Pop-Pop trusts you.
I think we should call a doctor.
Connecting homeowners with skilled pros for over 30 years. Angie, the one you trust to find the ones you trust. Find pros for all your home projects at Angie.com.
The big game commercials are basically must-see TV. This year, Elf Cosmetics went all out with an absurdly funny telenovela called Melissa. It stars Melissa McCarthy, Nicholas Gonzalez, Itati Cantoral, and Elf Glow Reviver Lip Oil. The Elf Glow Reviver Lip Oil is an ultra-glossy tinted lip oil that nourishes, hydrates, and enhances your lips' natural color.
Watch the full episode of their new Elf novela on soyunbaño.com.
Well, the holidays have come and gone once again, but if you've forgotten to get that special someone in your life a gift, well, Mint Mobile is extending their holiday offer of half off unlimited wireless. So here's the idea. You get it now, you call it an early present for next year. What do you have to lose? Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Limited time, 50% off regular price for new customers. Upfront payment required. $45 for 3 months, $90 for 6 months, or $180 for 12-month plan. Taxes and fees extra. Speeds may slow after 50 gigabytes per month when network is busy. See terms.
Hello, Middle Podcast listeners. Before we get to a very special show that we did with the host of Science Friday and a top astrophysicist in the country about restoring trust in science, Tolliver, I want to just tell our listeners about a very special offer on the table right now, because as we did last year, we got a amazing, generous donation from the Tyler Dickman Foundation, which means that your donations to the Middle, which are tax deductible, are going to be matched dollar for dollar. That means if you give $100, Tolliver, how much does it actually come into us as?
$200.
If you give,
thanks for making that easy for me.
Yeah. If you give $500, Tolliver, can we do $500? What would it be?
$1,000.
$1,000. Okay. We're trying to get up to 10,000. So anyway, any amount you can give really helps us. It's at listentothemiddle.com. Again, just go to listentothemiddle.com and click on the support button, and you will be able to make a donation. Thank you so much, and enjoy the show. Welcome to the Middle. I'm Jeremy Hobson, and our DJ Tolliver is here as well. And Tolliver, so are some new listeners.
Yeah, all across the Commonwealth of Virginia, from Roanoke to Richmond on Radio IQ.
All right. I just drove through Virginia recently. It is an absolutely beautiful state. So welcome to you in Virginia. Tolliver, it is easy to forget this because we kind of like to put bad memories out of our mind, but it has now been about 6 years since the COVID pandemic totally shut down the world.
I had so many bedazzled masks. This is a true story. They were falling out of my closet every single day. It was wild.
I just actually threw out a mask the other day. I will not be needing that again, or at least I don't think so. But I bring that up because the pandemic and the response to it, people telling us to wear masks, stand 6 feet apart, get the vaccine, that actually led to a significant drop in trust in science in America, in part because COVID almost instantly became political. Here is Florida's Republican Governor Ron DeSantis speaking in 2021.
I think it's very important that we say unequivocally no to lockdowns, no to school closures, no to restrictions, and no mandates.
Florida famously had very few rules during the pandemic and ended up with a death rate that was actually about the same as states with a lot of rules. That was then. Now, the president of the United States, who, by the way, calls climate change a hoax, has appointed science skeptics throughout his administration, including Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who's been whittling away at vaccination recommendations in the United States. And more worrying for scientists, the federal government overall has sought billions of dollars in cuts to scientific research. So our question to you this hour, how can trust in science be restored? Our number is 844-4MIDDLE. That is 844-464-3353. And we'll get to your calls in just a moment. But first, last week, we asked you how the past year of Trump's presidency has affected your life personally. Here are some of the voicemails that came in.
Hey, this is Andrew from Pittsburgh, PA, and this administration has really affected my life in a negative aspect where I lost my job because of these tariffs that have been going on. I mean, my company is a mostly international company. Everything that we deal with is international.
Hi, my name is Rich. I'm from Denver, Colorado. The first year of the Trump presidency has actually been quite good. The economy's up a lot more than I thought it would be. The tightening of the borders is what it should have been, and I'm for everyone coming into the country as long as they do it legally.
Hi, this is Danielle calling from Brighton, Michigan. My husband's a researcher, and so some of the funding that he relies on for his research has gone away. Some of the people that he works with lost their positions, even though they had just been promoted. So it's kind of like waiting for the next shoe to drop.
What a perfect voicemail to get us into today's show about a researcher. And a reminder, you can hear more from last week on the Middle podcast and our new weekly podcast, The Follow-Up. So now to our topic this hour. How can trust in science be restored? Tolliver, the phone number, please.
You can call us at 844-4MIDDLE. That's 844-464-3353. Or you can write to us at listentothemiddle.com or comment on our live stream on YouTube, and I'll get your comments on the air.
And by the way, if you yourself have lost trust in science, I'd love to hear from you about what it would take to restore your trust. Joining me this hour, Flora Lichtman, who is host of Public Radio's Science Friday. Flora, welcome to the Middle.
Thank you for having me. Glad to be here.
People are going to think it's like a different time of day right now if they're listening to you on
I'm very
this show.
confused personally. Yes.
And joining us as well is Priya Natarajan, who is a theoretical astrophysicist and chair of the Yale Astronomy Department. Priya, welcome to you.
Delighted to join in on this conversation.
Well, and let's talk about where we are on trust right now. Flora, I'll start with you. How much did COVID and the response to COVID from politicians who were, bringing what they were hearing from scientists to the public have to do with the drop in trust in science, do you think?
Jeremy, I'm going to make a mess of this question right off the bat. I feel like this is not a tidy story, at least from my vantage point. And I'll just bring up a couple of things. Like, for one, trust in science has varied over history, and it's varied depending on what community you are in and what your personal experience with science and medicine has been and what your community's experience with science and medicine has been. And so there are communities that have had lower trust in science for, obvious reasons. The pandemic, too, feels complicated to me, too, because I was talking to a pediatric infectious disease doctor this morning about this, and she said, yeah, there are things that we would have done differently, but also remember, information was changing very rapidly, and it wasn't just science. I think people sometimes talk about the pandemic as like, oh, this is science in action. We get new information and we revise it, and the public isn't aware of that. But this was like science meets a public health emergency on a scale that we really haven't seen. So that's one piece of it. And at the same time, I remember during the pandemic just sort of moments of immense pride in science, like when the
vaccine, for example.
The vaccine, and from the Trump administration as well, and just the emotional connection people had to getting it, this sort of like wave of relief. And one more complication, and I'll hand it off, but I think when we talk about trust in science today, it's also hard to broad strokes it because, like, what science are we talking about? Like, we have the American Academy of Pediatrics suing the CDC for their over the vaccine schedule. So, like, when we say science, are we talking about who these are?
Is it the researchers or is it
the
the science officials? Right. Priya, what do you think? You're a very accomplished scientist yourself. What do you think about where the lack of trust came from? Or is this new, what we're seeing now?
Well, I mean, I think this is not new. In fact, this is a long-standing sort of paradox in American society and culture. Like we're at the, and we've been a scientific superpower. We're at the cutting edge of research, discoveries and breakthroughs in many, many fields. But all alongside, we've had this sort of real sort of denialism of science that has been a very, very strong thread in our society. So it's a real paradox that these two things kind of coexist in America. And I actually think that there are some very deep, profound reasons for this kind of building distrust. And in particular, I actually think that the pandemic was an opportunity where trust could have been restored because, as I said, this is a long-standing deterioration. And I think we lost that opportunity. So I feel a little unhappy about that. And so my take is that, from the scientist's point of view, one of the things that we as scientists have not done all that well is sort of demystify the process of science, right? So the process of science, as Flora mentioned, right, is actually messy. It's not linear. The way in which scientists figure stuff out. It's complicated. Systems are complex. We are studying complex problems. We pare them down, try to understand them. And, there are dead ends, there are mistakes, whatever. And that process is not clean. However, it's still extremely rigorous. And why is it rigorous? Because, somebody proposes, a scientist, a domain expert who has trained, who understands the basics of science, doing research, proposes a brand new idea. What happens? All other domain experts in the field interrogate the idea, right? They really push and they scrutinize it. And after sort of lengthy critical look, it eventually, if the evidence is compelling and is supporting the claim that's made, then those domain experts actually validate the idea. So that process is complex, but it's really rigorous. And that's where the rigor of science really comes from, right? So, and I think that we scientists have presented, unfortunately, a rather sanitized view of science, and the public has not understood, this process. Anything we know in science is provisional.
And that process that you're talking about, Priya, doesn't work well with our social media-driven society where everything has to be very quick and we have no attention spans anymore. Let me just ask another thing before we get into the phone calls, and I see that the lines are starting to light up. Flora, we've heard about these cuts coming from the Trump administration, in part maybe because they feel that it's politically possible for them to do this now, to make cuts in science. We've heard about these cuts coming, but now it sounds like maybe Congress is starting to push back in a bipartisan way against the cuts. What do we know right now about what's happening?
Ready to soundtrack your summer? With Red Bull Summer All Day Play, you choose a playlist that fits your summer vibe the best. Are you a festival fanatic, a deep end DJ, a road dog, or a trail mixer? Just add a song to your chosen playlist and put your summer on track. Red Bull Summer All Day Play. Red Bull gives you wings. Visit redbull.com/brightsummer ahead to learn more. See you this summer.
With the cuts to federal funding of scientific research.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a really kind of like good news surprise story of the new year. So there have been bills that have been winding their way through Congress, so they're not done yet, but they have had bipartisan support that keep funding levels for most of the science agencies at about what they were last year. There have been even some minor increases. I think 2 days ago, an NIH budget came out that had like a 1% increase or something, which is not, it's not huge gains, but so much different than the 40% cut that we were, expecting to see. So I was really hopeful, and I talked to the the CEO of the AAAS last week, Sudip Parikh, who said also, this wasn't an accident. This has been the work of people behind the scenes all year long to make sure this happens.
Well, and actually, I'm glad that you brought up Sudip Parikh because Tolliver, we've been talking about the fact that a challenge for the scientific community has been explaining their work in layman's terms. Priya just said it, for people to really understand. And I guess Sudip Parikh had a clip for you, Tolliver.
He sure does. The CEO of the American Association for the Advancement of Science. Here he is speaking on Science Friday about that. Set me up.
There's a lot of things for scientists to do. The first is to ensure that we're telling our stories and telling our stories in multiple spaces. And so I always encourage scientists to speak with their representatives in their home districts. Wherever you live, find out who is your member of Congress and go have a discussion with them about what science is doing, first of all, in your community. What is the research that you do? How does it benefit your community? How does it benefit the country?
Might be easier said than done, Tolliver, to get a few minutes with your representative these days. They're not holding that many town meetings anymore.
Oh, my God. The good old days.
We'll be back with your calls on The Middle.
It's an Olympics you'll never forget. Prime time in Milan. The moments.
Chloe Kim with the gold medal flex.
The stars.
Ilya Malinin.
Out of this world.
The spectacle from beautiful northern Italy with very special guests every night of the Olympics. Experience the world's biggest show. Prime time in Milan. Tonight, 8/7 Central on NBC and Peacock.
Why have we asked our contractor we found on Angie.com to be our kids' legal guardian? Because he took such good care when redoing our basement that we knew we could trust him to care for our kids, all 8 of them, should something happen to us.
Are you my dad now?
No, sorry, I do basements. Connecting homeowners with skilled pros for over 30 years. Angie, the one you trust to find the ones you trust. Find pros for all your home projects at Angie.com.
How do you make chicken nuggets like 7,000% better? Short answer, you let Taco Bell make them. Long answer, start with all white meat chicken nuggets, bread them in crunchy tortilla chips, and serve them with Hidden Valley Diablo Ranch. Yep, that's Hidden Valley Ranch mixed with Taco Bell Diablo sauce. It's exactly what it sounds like, and somehow even better. Simple math, spicy results. Crispy chicken nuggets from Taco Bell. A brand new classic. At participating U.S. Taco Bell locations for a limited time only, while supplies last.
Ever wonder why so many people regain weight after stopping a GLP-1? Up to 40% of the weight lost can come from lean muscle. This weakens the body, slows metabolism, and makes it easier to put the pounds back on, creating a cycle of dependency. Prolon's 5-day fasting-mimicking diet offers a drug-free way to maintain results and support long-term metabolic health. In just 5 days, it activates fasting pathways to burn fat, protect muscle, and rejuvenate cells, all while letting you enjoy real food. Get 15% off plus a $40 bonus gift when you subscribe at prolonlife.com/iHeart. That's prolonlife.com/iHeart.
This is The Middle. I'm Jeremy Hobson. If you're just tuning in, The Middle is a national call-in show. We're focused on elevating voices from the middle, geographically, politically, and philosophically, or maybe you just want to meet in the middle. This hour, we're asking how trust in science can be restored. Tolliver, what is the number to call in?
It's 8444-MIDDLE. That's 844-464-3353. You can also write to us at listentothemiddle.com or on Substack.
I'm joined by Science Friday host Flora Lichtman and Yale theoretical astrophysicist Priya Natarajan. And just before we get to the phones, Priya, I wanted to ask you, who do you think has a responsibility to rebuild trust? Is it the scientists or is it somebody else?
I think it's a collective endeavor. I think the scientists have a role to play, and I think the public needs to be receptive as well, right? I mean, skepticism is kind of essential to science, and in the sort of, it's the willingness to question, to probe assumptions and to ask, how do we know? Problem is that there is sort of an epidemic of denialism amongst the public, which is kind of organized and sort of motivated rejection of well-established evidence. So, it doesn't simply say, I'm not persuaded yet, but the public needs to be receptive and not have the mindset of no evidence will persuade me. And unfortunately, that's kind of the bind that we are in. So everybody has a role to play in restoring trust in science. Educational institutions, research institutions, scientists themselves, and the public.
Okay, let's go to the phones. Magnus is calling in from Carbondale, Illinois. Magnus, go ahead. What do you think could be done to restore trust?
Yeah, hey, Jeremy. So I work in the college access nonprofit space, and
we're seeing this larger conversation about whether or not college is worth it. And I think that that's a symptom of a larger disease of anti-intellectualism that's tied in with a lack of confidence in science. So I think this is a two-headed beast where confidence in higher education, the value of a degree, is tied in with the skepticism surrounding lack of trust in science. And I think that is a battle that needs to be waged together because, of course, some of the world's best scientists are trained at colleges and universities in Illinois and in the country at large.
Yeah. Well, and
so I think
you're in Carbondale, which is a home to Southern Illinois University. Are you seeing people who have a lack of trust in science there?
Yeah, I mean, it's everywhere, right? And I do a lot of traveling for work, especially in the Midwest is where my focus is. And it's out there not only here in university towns, but everywhere.
Yeah. Magnus, thank you very much for that. Flora, what do you make of that, a connection between sort of an anti-intellectualism in general? And obviously there's been a big attack on universities in this country from the Trump administration in the last year.
Yeah, and it reminds me what I was thinking as Magnus was talking was about the declining trust we see in institutions generally, all institutions. And I think this is such a hard problem. And I'm very curious, Priya, do you have thoughts about how you solve what seems like a huge, intractable existential problem?
You mean trust in institutions in general, sort of higher institutions? Yeah, I mean, well, at Yale University, I serve on a presidential committee that's been convened to look into this issue of trust in higher education. I think Magnus is spot on that the lack of trust in science is obviously related to this larger, lack of trust in institutions. However, there's another paradox, right? If you look at the Pew survey, trust in scientists and the work that they do is actually pretty high.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost as high. It's only second to the military, right? And it's much higher than, anything else. So they looked at 8 categories of institutions. Of course, elected public political officials are like 3% or something. They're the worst. So, I mean, I think institution-wise, and community-wise, scientists still are doing okay, right? Yeah. But I think there's a larger debate and a good one that we all need to think hard about, which is the role of universities, right? And the role of universities in teaching. Are they teaching the kind of critical thinking skills that you need to have in order to live in a world that is driven by science and technology, for example, right?
Well, and I wonder also if it goes back even before universities to elementary school, middle school, high school, the kind of science that people are getting at an even younger age. Let's go to Warren, who is calling in from Grand Rapids, Michigan. Warren, go ahead with your thoughts about trust in science and how to restore it.
Wow, I wish I had picked one of my 10 items because a lady sure thinks that science is... Anyway, I won't talk about the AI problem in the papers. I'm supposed to talk about the editor-in-chief of Nature Science testified in front of Congress that we are not going to be debating anything on climate science or on COVID because it's just too polarized and we can't keep it civil and so on and so on. So then we have 3 pillars in science, the repeatability, the peer review, and the debate. Well, we just lost a pillar there. And the most important thing at the time was those 2 things. So we can't talk about important things because it's polarizing.
So you think that you're saying that there's not enough debate about things like climate change and COVID?
Well, you can't ask questions without having your reputation destroyed. So you can't even ask a question, let alone debate.
Warren, interesting point. Priya, how do you respond to that? The people that don't feel that there's an adequate amount of debate about things where some scientists would say, well, we've already had that debate and now we need to move on to the next question.
Right. So, I mean, I think the debates are actually continuing. They're continuing at conferences and workshops. And of course, there are certain tired debates in the sense, there are people, as I mentioned, even within the scientific community, there are people who are not persuadable even with new evidence because, there is research work that is showing that part of our belief system has to do with group identity. So if we belong to a group, political group, community group, where climate denialism, for example, they're not accepting climate change, becomes part of our identity, then we don't actually question it, right? And I think that the deep cultural roots of why we believe what we believe and what it's going to take us to open our minds to actually have a debate, a productive debate, are very complex. But I think we should not shy away from debate. And I actually believe that even if they are the tired debates, that we should redo them. They are worth replaying. And I think, Jeremy, as you pointed out, we live in a small attention span economy. So, we really need to repeatedly do this for people to kind of get it and engage.
Let's go to Christina, who's calling in from Hendersonville, North Carolina. Hi, Christina. Go ahead with your thoughts about restoring trust.
So I'm a public health nurse, and there are measles outbreaks in every surrounding county. I'm just a sitting duck in mine for now until we get our first case that I'm sure will blow up because our vaccination rates are abysmal right now. But the problem with science right now is that they are not speaking and communicating clearly and concisely and directly. For instance, they never say things like measles is the most infectious disease known to man that affects humans right now. There is no other disease, including smallpox or chickenpox or influenza, that is more contagious. So just being able to say something with being direct and concise and not trying to make sure that they cover all the possibilities in their statement and make sure they're being so objective because they're scientists.
Well, who's the they that you're talking about? Are you talking about scientists or are you talking about politicians trying to explain it?
No, scientists, public health officials, people of authority, doctors. They're trained to be skeptics, and so to ask someone to say a direct thing like, "Could this kill me?" Yes, this could kill you. Instead saying, well, there's a good chance, about 50-70% about, no, this could kill you, right?
Yeah, Christina has a very good point. And Flora, just kind of reminds me of years of covering climate change. And even when you get a climate scientist on, sometimes they're like, well, we can't say that this giant hurricane that's hitting Texas right now is actually a result of climate change, but it could be made worse by it. Anyway, what do you think about that comment?
100%. I think Christina is hitting on a real thing, and part of it I think that could change is there's no media training. There's no for scientists as far as I know. At least it is not required in most cases, right? And we feel this on Science Friday all the time. We talk to scientists constantly, and I think that's a problem. I mean, scientists should have to explain what they do and why they're doing it if they're getting public funding. If we are paying for that research, I think that should be part of the mandate is to be able to talk about what you do. So I think Christina is hitting on something, really real.
Mm-hmm. Tolliver, what is coming in at listentothemiddle.com?
Yeah, so Mickey, I'm summarizing a couple of these, y'all, so forgive me, all right? But Mickey says people who are in clinical trials in the U.S., unfortunately, those trials lose funding, and then they have to go overseas with no jobs looking for hope. So he highlights that is obviously a terrible thing. Paul in Urbana says, the mistrust of Big Pharma is huge. It's warranted. Its capture of Congress is abysmal. And then Wilson in New Jersey says, we need to talk about the funding for research and how this can bias results. So we have those and many, many more coming in.
And Priya, just to go back to the funding for research issue there that we talked about a little bit with Flora, is it your understanding now that most of the funding is kind of going to be about what it was in the last year? Or do you think Trump is going to sign this budget?
Well, we hope he will. I mean, and I think this is definitely the case. This is what I've heard too for NASA and NSF budgets, that they're going to be pretty much sort of back where they were. It would have been nice for them to go up with inflation, but that's fine. We'll take this, and let's hope it's the president signs it.
Aisha is calling in from Dayton, Ohio. Let's go to Aisha. Welcome to the middle. Go ahead.
Hey, yeah. So I would definitely echo what the public health nurse was saying earlier. Scientists definitely need to have better communication. I think also needs to start with the top down from the administration. The next administration needs to show from the get-go that they have the utmost trust in scientists. And I think back to the communication point, I think, yes, be more relatable to people, be more direct, to the point, and be more relatable. Like, I think these days in the attention economy, I think scientists are very used to being very, like, long-winded and very complicated. People don't have time for that. So, for example, how the White House is using memes to make their point. I don't agree with everything they say, but it is effective, I think, in how it crosses its message. I don't know if that's an idea that will work. I think it's something that scientists should consider. Just being more relatable.
That is interesting. That's very interesting, actually. Priya, what do you think about that? I mean, would you feel weird using memes to get your point across? I mean, or maybe that's just the way to communicate with people these days.
Well, I think Aisha has a really interesting point that, we have to reach out to people in the ways in which that, they actually partake of the information and they actually take it in, right? And I agree that, media training and learning to talk clearly and transparently about science is a really important, corrective that we have to. Maybe it's memes, right? Maybe it's TikTok videos and memes.
Do you put out memes, Flora, with Science Friday and your social media channels?
We're a 34-year-old radio show, Jeremy, so no. But but we should be putting out memes, and I think it's a good note. I mean, one thing that that's coming to mind for me is also just the role of media in this. We've been pinning a lot on scientists, but there's also this whole niche of science media that I think plays a role. And when we talk about complexity of the scientific process and that it is messy and that it is about asking questions and that it is imperfect, I don't know that as media we always do the best job of explaining that nuance. And especially now, I feel like media has become so flattened where you just see the headline and the sort of messy details get erased and the nuance gets erased. So I think I'm just going to take some responsibility too, because I think we science journalists have a role to play here too.
At first, I didn't think it was real. I woke up to this blinding light and I was transported to another place. Pluto TV. Then I heard a voice.
Come with me if you want to live.
There were thousands of movies and shows, and they were all free. The
truth is
it's just so beautiful.
On Pluto TV, free streaming of Terminator 2, Fringe, Arrow, The 100, and The X-Files may cause excitement, loss of sleep, and sudden belief in extraterrestrials. No credit cards or alien encounters necessary. Pluto TV. Stream now, pay never.
Let's go to...
Totally.
Let's go to
I
John.
would say that, yes, spread it around, the responsibility.
Yeah, we'll always take some of the responsibility in the media. Let's take Judy's call in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Judy, go ahead. How can trust in science be restored?
A quick backstory. When COVID started, I believed everything the government told me. I was terrified of catching COVID. I masked, I social distanced, I got vaccinated at the first available opportunity. Trust the science, right? And then my mother-in-law, who had been an invalid for years with diabetes and kidney failure and congestive heart failure, died in the hospital. She was tested almost daily for COVID, tested negative every time because we were always terrified of her getting COVID in the hospital. So we're like, well, at least she doesn't have COVID. Her death certificate came back, and guess what it said? COVID. I don't believe anything anymore. I don't know what to believe. I want to see this investigated because how can we know how many people actually died of COVID? I don't think my family was the only one. I've tried to find out, are there other people who had this experience? I posted a thread on Reddit. It was deleted within nanoseconds. I don't know who to ask or where to go.
Yeah.
But
Judy,
this was fraud.
Judy, I appreciate your call and our condolences to you as well for your loss. Thank you for calling in. Priya, there's nothing that makes somebody make a decision or have an opinion in politics more than a personal experience like that. And I imagine think about how many people died of COVID-19 in the United States, how many people have a personal connection to that and made a judgment about their trust or lack of trust in science as a result.
Yeah, I think almost all of us, I'm very sorry to hear that, Judy, almost all of us knew someone who didn't make it through COVID. I think once again, right here, these tests are not 100% reliable. There is uncertainty in science. And I think this transparency from, more generally about science, and the fact that even when we know scientific facts, that there is a degree of there's a possibility that, it's not fully reliable, it's 97%, 99%. Obviously, these statistics really come home when it hits us personally. But, uncertainty is really part of science itself. And if that's something that, is well understood overall, more broadly, rather than, in the context of something tragic like this, right? It's very hard to personally accept that and say, okay, you know what, this is that inherent uncertainty of a false positive, false negative in these tests, right?
Right. It's hard to talk about the uncertainty there. And Tolliver, I think we've been talking about COVID, we've been talking about climate change. I think it's fair to say a lot of people don't actually think about how science may relate to just about everything they do, including but not limited to the phone in their pocket.
You mean the phone in my hand right now during the show?
Yes. Right.
Listen here to geneticist Mary Claire King talking on Science Friday about what the purpose of science really is.
On the one hand, it's to satisfy intellectual curiosity, and that transcends all forms of science, from astronomy through molecular biology, archaeology, through botany, everything. And then in parallel with that, and obviously knit together with it, is to be useful.
By the way, Mary Claire King was the first to show that breast cancer could be inherited through genetic mutations, which was quite useful, I would say. We've got more of your calls coming up on The Middle.
It's an Olympics you'll never forget. Prime time in Milan. The moments.
Chloe Kim with the gold medal flex.
The stars.
Ilya Malinin.
Out of this world.
The spectacle from beautiful northern Italy with very special guests every night of the Olympics. Experience the world's biggest show. Prime time in Milan. Tonight, 8/7 Central on NBC and Peacock.
Why have we asked our contractor we found on Angie.com to be our kids' legal guardian? Because he took such good care when redoing our basement that we knew we could trust him to care for our kids, all 8 of them, should something happen to us.
Are you my dad now?
No, sorry, I do basements. Connecting homeowners with skilled pros for over 30 years. Angie, the one you trust to find the ones you trust. Find pros for all your home projects at Angie.com.
You see it instantly. It's Coldwater Creek, the mark of exceptional workmanship and signature touches inspired by a Mountain West heritage. Distinctive styles created from quality fabrics, silhouettes perfected with just the right drape, feel-good fits offering ease of movement, and thoughtful details to elevate your look. Coldwater Creek's authenticity is embodied in every piece, embracing its confident spirit that carries through to today. Discover Coldwater Creek clothing, designed to fit your life the way you want. For a wardrobe you can count on season after season, visit coldwatercreek.com. Shop the new spring collection at 20% off $75 or more with code IHEART20.
Welcome to the A Building. I'm Hans Charles.
I'm Menelik Lumumba. It's 1969. Malcolm X and Martin Luther King Jr. had both been assassinated, and Black America was at a breaking point. Rioting and protests broke out on an unprecedented scale.
In Atlanta, Georgia, at Martin's alma mater, Morehouse College, the students had their own protest. It featured 2 prominent figures in Black history, Martin Luther King Sr. and a young student, Samuel L. Jackson.
To be in what we really thought was a revolution. I mean, people were dying.
1968, the murder of Dr. King, which traumatized everyone.
The FBI had a role in the murder of a Black Panther leader in Chicago.
This story is about protest. It echoes in today's world far more than it should, and it will blow your mind.
Listen to the A Building on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is The Middle. I'm Jeremy Hobson. In this hour, we're asking how trust in science can be restored. I'm joined by Yale theoretical astrophysicist Priya Natarajan and Science Friday host Flora Lichtman. Our number is 844-4MIDDLE. That's 844-464-3353. Or we are at listentothemiddle.com. The phone lines are filling up, so let's go back to them. John is in Delano, Minnesota. Hi, John. What do you think about restoring trust in science?
So I guess I'd like to comment on, what Priya said, and I think that's a good punt. Look, science has to be repeatable. It needs to be repeatable so that we can trust in it. And for her to come up with some it was a false negative or so forth. No, this has actually occurred throughout the United States on a multitude. I think science is being restored by this administration. The NIH is no longer under Anthony Fauci. There's a lot of propaganda, money, things that happen there. They're doing gain of function. There's a lot of dirty stuff that was happening. And what's great about right now is that they're actually using independent scientists to use repeatability. Can these things actually be proven? Because science isn't some sort of thing that we use abstractly. And it sounded very abstract that what she just said right now. And I look forward to her response.
Okay.
But I will say
okay, John, yeah.
I will say that.
We've got it, John. Yeah, go ahead. Finish your thought.
If I may, just one last point. They're using independent scientists right now. I think what they're doing with the FDA, getting food under control, looking at things that are real and that matter, like the fact that we've used all of this pseudoscience to support companies that were actually involved just for the money. We're getting the money out of the way, and we got to get the human beings in the middle because these are human lives. This is not like, okay, I'll stop there.
I got you, John. Let me go to Priya for just a response to that, to what John had to say.
So I think for many medicines that we take, clinical trials have been done, very, very robust clinical trials with a control group and a group that got the medication was done. It turns out that not every human body reacts the same way. By and large, we do. And therefore, there are these uncertainties. So I wasn't punting. Even when you replicate these trials, you don't get the same exact outcome. There's a little bit of variation. And that's the uncertainty that I'm talking about. So, and that is an inescapable part of science. I understand the point that you're making, that often money and who funds the science and what the incentives are may distort results. But that was not the case. We had many independent groups. Look, COVID was very special because of the time pressure and the urgency and the severity of that pandemic. We were very ill prepared for something of this scale because nothing like this had ever happened. We should have been better prepared, and we weren't, right?
Yeah. On the issue of the money, Flora, let me ask you about that, because that has come up also in some of the comments that we've received heading into this show. I guess the question is, as somebody who covers science all the time, do you have to sort of take a second look every time you get a new study? And, well, is this funded by the pharmaceutical companies, or who's, how do we know that we can trust what's coming out of this scientific study?
Yeah, I think that's actually a really complex question because, yes, you want to look at who is behind the funding, but sometimes you can't tell. And I was just reading this article by Naomi Oreskes from Harvard about ghostwriting in scientific papers, where you have basically companies, pharmaceutical companies, pesticide companies, basically paying researchers, writing a study, paying researchers, independent researchers, to put their name on it. And this was in the news recently because the glyphosate, which is the main ingredient in Roundup, is up for review by the EPA. And this giant paper that had been cited, over 800 times or whatever it was about its safety was retracted because it was, ghostwritten. So I think yes, of course you want to look into the funding or the ulterior motives, but I don't know that it's always that easy to tell.
Dillian is calling in from Denver, Colorado. Dillian, go ahead with your thoughts.
Yeah, I'm just a senior from CU Boulder, and I'm minoring in atmospheric and oceanic sciences, so I can really only speak for this kind of science. But given that the military is a trusted institution, even among those who might not trust science, I think we need to connect this to how the military can benefit from this. So the armed forces relies on accurate weather forecasts from NOAA, and like, for example, you wouldn't want to go in blind and send a ship into a storm, and the safety of our soldiers often relies on these forecasts.
Great. Thank you very much. But Priya, what about that? You mentioned, I mean, the trust that exists in the military. Would it be possible to, just make more of a connection between the science that the military uses for everything that they do?
I think that's a really interesting and interesting suggestion, that you have to humanize some of these scientific predictions, and in particular when we are putting people in harm's way. I think that's an intriguing suggestion, and probably worth following up.
Alex is in Madison, Wisconsin. Alex, go ahead with your thoughts.
Hi there. So as a tenured professor and scientist myself, I've seen how our community sometimes undermines its own credibility, not through bad research, but through tone. And when we lead with certainty and dismiss questions as ignorance, I think we shut down the very dialogue that builds trust. So I think that humility is weakness in science. It is the heart of the scientific method, and science is fundamentally a process of questioning, revising, and, admitting that we don't yet know everything. And that epistemic humility is what makes science trustworthy in the first place. But somewhere along the way, we started communicating as if we had arrived at a final answer, and rather than as fellow travelers in an ongoing inquiry. And I think that people can sense that difference between a scientist who says, well, let me help you understand what I know, and one who says, here's what the evidence currently shows, here's what we're still working to figure out. I think that first one closes the doors, but that second one can open them. And I think that trust is real, and we really need to focus on that relationship through curiosity and humility first.
Alex, thank you very much. And I'll just let you know that both of our guests were nodding. For those people that were watching on YouTube, they said they were both nodding as you were saying what you were saying. So
Alex,
Flora, tell us, why were you nodding,
Such
Flora?
a good comment. I really, you think it was so well said.
Leading with transparency and not certainty is really, I think, invaluable. And kind of, as I'm nodding, like really in great agreement. The process of science is something that, we really should be laying bare.
I think,
Flora,
Priya, you
go
said,
ahead.
you mentioned paradoxes, and I feel like this is like the ultimate scientific paradox. It's like, it is a discipline that is about knowing and not knowing at the same time. And it's beautiful.
Yeah.
Let's go back to Pittsburgh and Samir, who's calling in from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Hi, Samir. What about you? What do you think can be done to restore trust in science?
I think that there needs to be more scientific breakthrough, especially for research that is funded by the American taxpayer. We shell out a lot, and we don't get very much in return. We do get innovation and breakthrough, but that it's an extra cost to us. We're taxed for the research to fund the research, and then on top of that, we're taxed or charged through premiums and out-of-pocket pay for medications that we've already funded for. They've asked for us to fund cancer research for decades now, and there's very little breakthrough on that. So I just think that there needs to be some kind of we cured cancer, we cured diabetes. Something massive needs to happen.
A little impatience from Samir. What do you think about that, Flora? Because some people would say we've made huge advances in things like science, in things like cancer research, not to mention technology and all the things that came out of our NASA funding. But good point. We still have to pay for these things when they come along, even though the American taxpayer did help fund the research in the first place.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is where you see that the breakdown in science communication is happening because, there's sort of an oft-quoted stat that it's like for every dollar you put in, you get $2 or $3 back when it comes to basic research. And, when I think about the advances just in my 20 years of covering science, especially in medicine, I'm awed. I'm really awed by the progress we have made for some diseases. So I don't see it that way, but I think what it shows is that we're not doing the best job connecting the dots for people.
Brett is in Madison, Wisconsin. Let's get him on the air. Brett, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. Great program. And Flora, I think I dated your sister Fauna in college, but that was
oh my god,
that was a while ago.
I've never heard that version, so thank you for that's a new one for me. Appreciate it.
Sorry about that. But I was a science teacher, researcher, and then I was also a state legislator in Wisconsin. And I represent the University of Wisconsin. And one of the things I found is we have to tell our story better, going to the point Flora just made. And we have to give, Jean Piaget says, we have to give concrete examples to move people from sort of concrete thinkers to more abstract thinkers. And it was Wisconsin, we are the dairy state because 110 years ago, University of Wisconsin, agronomists, best scientists in UW Extension, we were a third-rate wheat state. And they went out, they studied the situation, looked at our resources, and had a 30, 40-year plan that now, we make the best cheese in the world. And that didn't just spring out of the ground. So, but we have to tell those stories. Obviously in lung cancer, gene therapy and cancer treatment, gene therapy is great, but 1,000 people quit smoking every day the hard way because they're still smoking. So it's like, we've got to... People got to do their
So
part.
more concrete examples, Brett. Thank you for that. Priya, your thoughts.
Yeah, actually, when Samir was speaking, I actually picked up my iPhone and I was waving it to remind people. I totally agree that we need to talk about and share the story. So you would not, without all the research in fundamental quantum mechanics, who would have thunk? You would not have had this phone. In fact, you wouldn't have had any electronics whatsoever. And without, Einstein's theory of general relativity, you would not have had GPS satellites. So you would not have, a lot of the things that we take for granted. I think, I respond again that, we really need to connect the dots and show people what the returns are. And especially with basic sciences, it's trickier because the arc, how long it takes for something to really translate into a product, is unpredictable. So sometimes it can be quite long and sometimes it's very easy to see. I mean, I think in medicine, it's been much faster than, for example, fields like quantum mechanics or general relativity. It's hard to sort of see how it's completely transformed our life. But science has, and I think the returns are actually quite high. I think we need to, understand that, when it comes to medication, translation of research, right? We are, again, the corporate world is in there. It's not that the scientists are involved in pricing the drugs, right? They're not. They're doing the research, they're publishing it, and then you have corporate interests that want to make money that are pricing the drugs.
Let's go to Aaron, who's in Thornton, Colorado. Hi, Aaron. What do you think about restoring trust in science?
I think it's a very, very tall order. Science is based on logic and evidence, results, and people don't even think that way. I think it's interesting how we try to approach people with so many things that they don't even use for how they process information, like logic and reasoning and evidence. And it's shown through their counter argument and the complete weakness of it that they're not even using those things. You have a better chance of getting Joe Rogan to say something that you want to say so they like him and now they believe it. Because most of us are wired that we can only really accept what you say if we like you to begin with. Me, personally, individually, I don't have to like you for you to be right. But for most of us, that is very true. I need to like you for you to be right. And it doesn't matter what it is.
Yeah, very interesting point, Aaron, and it actually brings up something that I saw in that Pew poll that Priya, you were mentioning earlier, which is that I think 90% of Democrats have at least some confidence in scientists, but right now it's like 65% of Republicans. So there's a big breakdown on the political, which gets to the point that we just heard, Flora, from the caller.
Yeah, I mean, I think there has become now an identity component to your perspective on this. And I think that is really hard. I mean, maybe I am naive or Pollyanna, but I do think people can process information with logic and reason. And I do have hope for that. I have to, partly because it's my job, but also I do.
Yeah. Let me just wrap up this hour. It's amazing calls. And by the way, for people that are still on the line, leave us a message and we'll get to it in the follow-up, or we'll get to it on next week's program. But Priya, if you could snap your fingers and change one thing about, let's say, our education system before people get to college that would maybe build some more trust, what would you do?
Yeah, so I think, it's not so, it's about teaching this sort of critical thinking skills of how to evaluate evidence, how, and whether, an argument, you have an argument, how is it supported? Is it robustly supported? What is the kind of evidence you would need to support it or debunk it? Those kinds of, the ability to discriminate and to be able to judge and make those calls. We have to teach kids how to do that from school. So I think it's critical thinking skills is what I think could be quite transformative in school education. I think
Flora,
it's even more important than the content of science itself.
So it's okay that I didn't do very well in my high school physics and chemistry, as long as I understand the critical thinking side of things. That's the most important. Flora, just briefly, let me just ask you very quickly, what have you learned about America from hosting Science Friday on the issue of what we're talking about here?
What a big question, but okay, here are my thoughts on that. I think basically the answer is that I have restored faith in humanity through this show, partly because we talk to people like Priya who are obsessed with their thing, who are dogged in this pursuit of finding something out, and who sometimes make discoveries that make our lives better because we learn about how the universe was formed or because they find a gene that is tied to breast cancer. But I also feel like our listeners every day remind me that the world is filled with funny, kind, thoughtful, curious people.
Yeah. Good. A very hopeful note to end on. Flora Lichtman, the host of Science Friday, and Priya Natarajan, theoretical astrophysicist and chair of the Yale Astronomy Department. Thank you so much to both of you.
Thanks, Jeremy.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
And next week, we'll be back here asking you if you think your health care is working for you, because as you know, a lot of people's costs just went way up at the beginning of the year.
Our number is 8444-MIDDLE. That's 844-464-3353. Or you can go to listentothemiddle.com to subscribe to our free weekly newsletter, which is now on Substack.
All right. The Middle is brought to you by Long Nook Media, distributed by Illinois Public Media in Urbana, Illinois. I am Jeremy Hobson, and I will talk to you next week.
It never happens at a good time. The pipe bursts at midnight. The heater quits on the coldest night. Suddenly, you're overwhelmed. That's when HomeServe is here. For $4.99 a month, you're never alone. Just call their 24/7 hotline and a local pro is on the way. Trusted by millions, HomeServe delivers peace of mind when you need it most. For plans starting at just $4.99 a month, go to HomeServe.com. That's HomeServe.com. Not available everywhere. Most plans range between $4.99 to $11.99 a month your first year. Terms apply on covered repairs.
You see it instantly. It's Coldwater Creek, the mark of exceptional workmanship and signature touches inspired by a Mountain West heritage. Distinctive styles created from quality fabrics, silhouettes perfected with just the right drape, feel-good fits offering ease of movement, and thoughtful details to elevate your look. Coldwater Creek's authenticity is embodied in every piece, embracing its confident spirit that carries through to today. Discover Coldwater Creek clothing, designed to fit your life the way you want. For a wardrobe you can count on season after season, visit coldwatercreek.com. Shop the new spring collection at 20% off $75 or more with code IHEART20.
Over the last couple years,
Didn't we learn that the folding chair was invented by Black people because of what happened in Alabama?
The Montgomery Brawl.
This Black History Month, the podcast Selective Ignorance with Mandy B unpacks Black history and culture with comedy, clarity, and conversations that shake the status quo. The Crown Act in New York was signed in July of 2019, and that is a bill that was passed to prohibit discrimination based on hairstyles associated with race. To hear this and more, listen to Selective Ignorance with Mandy B from the Black Effect Podcast Network on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
1969. Malcolm and Martin are gone. America is in crisis. And at Morehouse College, the students make their move.
These students, including a young Samuel L. Jackson, locked up the members of the Board of Trustees, including Martin Luther King Sr. It's the true story of protest and rebellion in Black American history that you'll never forget. I'm Hans Charles.
I'm Menelik Lumumba.
Listen to The A Building on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is an iHeart podcast. Guaranteed human.
Did you know if your windows are bare, indoor temperatures can go up 20 degrees? Get ahead of summer with custom window treatments like solar roller shades from Blinds.com and save up to 45% during the Memorial Day Early Access Sale. Whether you want to DIY it or have a pro handle everything, we've got you. Free samples, real design experts, and zero pressure. Just help when you need it. Shop up to 45% off site-wide right now during the Early Access Memorial Day Sale at Blinds.com. Rules and restrictions apply.